The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm golden glow over the bustling flea market. I wandered through the maze of stalls, my eyes darting from one intriguing item to another. Each piece seemed to whisper stories from a time long forgotten, igniting my imagination and filling me with an insatiable curiosity. I loved coming here, not just to shop, but to dive into the lives of others, if only for a moment. "Look at this!" I exclaimed as I picked up an intricately carved wooden box, its surface adorned with swirling patterns and faded hues. The vendor, an elderly man with a weathered smile, leaned in closer. "Ah, that box has a history," he said, his voice gravelly yet warm. "It belonged to a sailor who traveled the world. He kept his treasures safe in there." I smiled, setting the box back down. The stories were everywhere, and I felt like a detective, piecing together fragments of the past. As I continued my exploration, a sudden glint caught my eye. A small stall tucked away in the corner seemed to radiate an unusual energy. I made my way over, my heart quickening with anticipation. Behind the counter stood a woman, perhaps in her 70s, her silver hair pulled back in a neat bun. Her hands were lined with age, but her eyes sparkled with a youthful spirit. "Welcome, dear," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "Are you looking for something special?" I glanced around, my eyes landing on a delicate necklace hanging on a tarnished velvet cloth. It was unlike anything I had ever seen. An ornate silver pendant shaped like a crescent moon, adorned with tiny, shimmering stones that caught the light in a mesmerizing way. "What a beautiful piece," I breathed, reaching out to touch it. The woman's expression shifted, and she leaned closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "That necklace has a story, you know. It belonged to a woman named Lucia. She was an artist, filled with passion and dreams. But her life, well, it was complicated." "Complicated how?" I asked, my interest piqued. "Ah, it's not my place to tell her tale," she replied, her eyes narrowing slightly. "But I can tell you this. Lucia's heart was caught in a web of love and tragedy, and that necklace holds the memories of her life." I felt a strange pull toward the necklace, as if it were calling to me. "How much?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She hesitated for a moment, studying my face. "It is not just a trinket, dear. Carries a weight of history. I can part with it for a fair price, but know that it comes with its own responsibilities." "I don't mind," I replied, my determination solidifying. "I'd like to know more about Lucia." "Very well," she said, a small smile breaking through her serious demeanor. "But remember, some stories are not for the faint of heart." I nodded, entranced. I handed her the money, and she carefully wrapped the necklace in a soft cloth, placing it gently in my hands. "Take care of it, Julia," she said, her voice almost a whisper. "You may find it leads you to places you never expected." As I walked home, the weight of the necklace felt both comforting and eerie. I couldn't shake the feeling that it was more than just a piece of jewelry. I could sense its history, a connection that tingled at my fingertips. Once inside my small apartment, I placed the necklace on my desk and sat down, my heart racing with excitement. I pulled out my laptop and began typing Lucia's name into the search engine. My fingers danced over the keyboard as I searched for any clues about the artist and her life. As the results loaded, I felt a thrill of anticipation. Finally, a photo caught my eye, a painting of a woman with wild, flowing hair and piercing eyes. The description revealed that Lucia had been a talented artist in the early 20th century, but it also mentioned her mysterious disappearance. "Disappeared under strange circumstances." I read aloud, my heart pounding. "What happened to you, Lucia?" I clicked on the link, diving deeper into her story. The article detailed her artistic achievements and her tumultuous relationship with a man named Raphael. Rumors suggested that their love was forbidden, shrouded in scandal and secrecy, which only deepened my curiosity. I spent hours reading everything I could find, my mind racing with questions. Why did she disappear? What was the nature of her forbidden love? And why did I feel such a strong connection to her? As the night wore on, I found myself lost in a haze of thoughts and questions. I glanced at the necklace, its silver glinting in the dim light of my desk lamp. I need to know more, I whispered to myself, determination flooding through me. I felt as if Lucia was reaching out from the past, urging me to uncover the truth. With a sigh of resolve, I decided to visit the university library the next day. It was there, surrounded by stacks of dusty books and forgotten stories, that I hoped to find answers. I wanted to know Lucia's dreams, her heartaches, and the secrets that had been buried with her. The morning sun greeted me with a promise of discovery as I made my way to the library. I navigated through the familiar aisles, the smell of old paper and leather binding enveloping me. I approached the information desk and asked the librarian for any records on Lucia. "Lucia? You mean Lucia de Almeida?" she replied, her eyebrows raising in recognition. She was quite the figure in the local art scene. There might be some archival materials in the special collections. My heart raced as she led me to a secluded room filled with old manuscripts and documents. The air felt heavy with history, and I could hardly contain my excitement. "Here we are," the librarian said, pulling out a worn leather-bound diary. "This belonged to her. Be careful. It's quite fragile." I took the diary from her hands, my fingers trembling as I opened it. The pages were filled with elegant handwriting, swirling letters that danced across the paper. My eyes widened as I read her thoughts, her dreams, and her struggles. "I long to paint the world as I see it," Lucia had written. "But the weight of my heart's desires pulls me in directions I cannot follow. Love is both my muse and my prison." My heart ached for her. I could feel her longing pouring from the pages, and with each entry, I was drawn deeper into her world. She wrote about her love for Raphael, the way he inspired her art, but also the pain of their circumstances. It was a love that could never be fully realized. As I turned the pages, I stumbled upon a passage that sent chills down my spine. "There is a curse that runs in my family," she wrote, "a shadow that looms over the women of my lineage. My grandmother spoke of it in hushed tones, warning me to tread carefully." "Cursed," I murmured to myself. "What does that mean?" My thoughts raced as I considered what the elderly woman had said about the necklace. Was it somehow connected to this curse? I felt a sense of urgency building within me. I needed to learn more, and I needed to speak to my grandmother. As I closed the diary, I suddenly felt overwhelmed by the weight of the past pressing down on me. I had to confront the mysteries surrounding Lucia, but I also had to face the secrets of my own family. I gathered my things and left the library, a mixture of excitement and dread swirling in my chest. When I arrived home, I found my grandmother in the living room, knitting quietly as she often did. I hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to broach the subject. The necklace lay on my desk, gleaming as if beckoning me to speak up. "Grandma," I began, my voice trembling, "can we talk about Lucia de Almeida?" She looked up, her expression shifting from calm to guarded. "Why are you asking about her?" "I found her diary," I replied, my heart racing. "She wrote about a curse in her family. I need to know if it's true." For a moment, silence enveloped the room. My grandmother's gaze was distant, lost in memories I wished to understand. "Some things are better left in the past, Julia," she finally said, her voice low. "You don't know what you're asking." "But I have to know," I insisted, frustration bubbling to the surface. "If Lucia's story has any connection to our family, I can't just ignore it." She sighed, setting her knitting aside. "There are secrets that can hurt us, dear. I promised myself I would protect you from them." "Protect me?" I echoed, my voice rising. "By keeping me in the dark? I deserve to know the truth." My grandmother's expression hardened, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of fear in her eyes. "Sometimes, the truth is more dangerous than the lies we tell ourselves," she said. Determined, I took a deep breath. "I'm not afraid anymore, Grandma. I want to break this cycle of silence. Lucia deserves to be remembered, and so do the women in our family." Her gaze softened, but she still hesitated. "You're young, Julia. You don't understand the weight of these secrets. They can haunt you. I'm willing to take that risk, I replied firmly. As vibrant sounds of the flea market surrounded me, the chatter of vendors, the occasional laughter of children, and the rustle of old fabrics. I wandered through the maze of stalls, my heart racing with the thrill of discovery. It was a treasure trove of relics from the past, each item whispering its own story. I could feel the weight of history in the air, and I was drawn to the corners of the market where the most peculiar artifacts lay. That's when I saw her, a frail, elderly woman with silver hair cascading down her shoulders, her face lined with the echoes of time. She seemed to appear out of nowhere, blocking my path with an enigmatic smile. There was something captivating about her, an aura that hinted at the secrets she held. "Ah, young lady," she said, her voice soft yet commanding. "You have the eyes of someone who appreciates true beauty." She gestured towards a small stall behind her, where a delicate, antique necklace lay glimmering under the afternoon sun. "This collar, my dear, is not just a piece of jewelry. It holds a story, an important one." I leaned closer, my curiosity piqued. The collar was exquisite. It shimmered with a warmth that seemed almost alive. "What's the story?" I asked, unable to resist the urge to touch it. The woman's eyes sparkled with intrigue. It belonged to a woman named Lucia. She was an artist, a dreamer, and she had a life filled with passion and tragedy. This collar may hold the key to her past. I felt a strange pull towards the collar, as if it was calling out to me. "I'll take it," I said impulsively, my heart racing. I didn't know why, but I had to have it. As I walked home, the collar cradled in my hands. My mind raced with thoughts of Lucia. Who was she? What had happened to her? I felt an inexplicable connection to this woman, as if her spirit intertwined with mine. When I finally reached my apartment, I placed the collar on my desk and sat down, determined to uncover its secrets. I started my research online, my fingers typing furiously. Hours passed, and I stumbled upon a gallery showcasing Lucia's artwork. My heart raced when I saw her portrait, a stunning woman with piercing eyes and a confident smile, standing in front of an easel, paintbrush in hand. The description beneath the painting was haunting. Lucia, an artist who disappeared under mysterious circumstances. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had to know more. What had happened to her? Why did her story end so abruptly? I was determined to find out, and I felt that the collar held the answers. The next day, I made my way to the university library, a place I frequented often, but this time I had a mission. I needed to find more about Lucia. As I sifted through the dusty shelves, I stumbled upon an old leather-bound diary that caught my eye. It was hidden between two thick volumes on art history. With trembling hands, I pulled it out and opened it cautiously. The pages were yellowed with age, and the ink was faded but still legible. As I read Lucia's words, I was transported into her world. She wrote about her dreams of becoming a renowned artist, her struggles with societal expectations, and her yearning for freedom. Sometimes I wonder if I am destined to paint the stories of others while my own remains untold. One entry read, "My heart ached for her. She had such passion, yet it was evident that she felt trapped." But then I stumbled upon a darker passage. "The weight of my family's legacy is heavy. My grandmother always spoke of a curse that afflicts the women in our family. I fear it may be true, for I feel its shadows creeping closer." A chill ran down my spine. A curse? Could this be why Lucia had vanished? I needed to know more. I decided to confront my own grandmother, hoping she might have insights into this mystery. "Grandma," I asked one afternoon when I visited her. She sat in her favorite armchair, knitting as usual. "I found something interesting about a woman named Lucia. Do you know her?" Her hands froze, and she looked up at me, her expression unreadable. "Lucia, you shouldn't be digging into the past, Julia. Some stories are better left untold." "Why?" I pressed, my curiosity ignited. What happened to her? Was she part of our family? "Some things are best forgotten," she said, suddenly changing the subject. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. The mystery deepened. and my grandmother's evasiveness only fueled my determination to uncover the truth. Walking away from her house, I felt a mix of frustration and resolve. I had to learn the truth about Lucia and the curse that seemed to shadow her life. I could feel the weight of the collar around my neck as a reminder of my quest. It was almost as if it was urging me forward, pushing me to uncover the secrets that lay hidden in our family's past. As I continued my research, I couldn't shake the feeling that Lucia was somehow reaching out to me. I needed to honor her memory, to understand the struggles she faced. It was as if the collar had connected our destinies, and I was determined to uncover the truth behind her mysterious disappearance. With every passing day, I felt more and more compelled to delve deeper into Lucia's life, to understand the artist behind the beautiful collar that now adorned my neck. The diary had opened a door, and I was ready to step through it, no matter where it might lead me. As sun-drenched streets of the flea market were alive with the sounds of bartering and laughter, the air thick with the scent of aged wood and forgotten memories, I wandered through the maze of stalls, enchanted by the relics of the past that lay before me. Each item seemed to whisper its own story, begging for attention, and I felt as if I were a time traveler, momentarily slipping into the lives of those who once cherished these treasures. As I turned a corner, a frail hand reached out to me. An elderly woman, her hair a cascade of silver, stood there with a curious glint in her eyes. "Dear, come here," she beckoned, her voice a soft tremor against the cacophony around us. "I have something special for you." Intrigued, I followed her to a small wooden table where an array of trinkets lay scattered. But it was the necklace that caught my eye. A delicate chain adorned with an intricate pendant that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. "This necklace," she said, lifting it gently between her fingers, "has a story. It belonged to a woman named Lucia, a woman of passion and tragedy." My heart raced. I felt an inexplicable connection to the necklace, as if it were calling out to me. "What happened to her?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The woman's gaze deepened, her expression turning somber. Lucia was a talented artist, but her life was shrouded in mystery. She vanished one day, and no one ever discovered what truly happened to her. She paused, watching my reaction. Some say she was cursed. Others believe she was the victim of a dark fate. As I left the market, the necklace cradled in my palm. I couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just an antique. It felt alive, almost as if it held the essence of Lucia herself. Back in my small apartment, I placed the pendant on my desk, its silver surface gleaming under the warm glow of the lamp. My curiosity piqued. I began to search for more information about Lucia. Hours slipped away as I scoured online galleries and archives. I stumbled upon a painting that took my breath away. It was a portrait of Lucia, her eyes filled with a haunting depth that seemed to speak directly to me. The description beneath the painting sent chills down my spine. It mentioned her mysterious disappearance, and I felt a pull towards the unknown. Who was she? Why had her life ended so abruptly? The next day, driven by an insatiable desire to learn more, I ventured to the university library. Dust motes danced in the sunlight pouring through the tall windows, creating an atmosphere that felt both sacred and secretive. I combed through shelves until I found an ancient leather-bound diary. The name embossed on the cover made my heart skip a beat. Lucia. The pages were yellowed with age, and as I carefully turned them, I was transported into Lucia's world. Her dreams spilled onto the paper, vivid descriptions of artistic aspirations and a forbidden love that seemed to leap off the pages. I could feel her passion, her heartache, and the weight of the secrets she carried. But one entry caught my attention more than the others. It spoke of a curse that afflicted the women of her family, a dark shadow that seemed to loom ever closer. Why would anyone hide something like this? I murmured to myself, feeling a sense of urgency building within me. I needed to talk to my grandmother about Lucia. Later that evening, I sat across from my grandmother at the dinner table, the weight of the diary heavy in my thoughts. "Grandma," I started hesitantly, "I found something about a woman named Lucia. Julia," she interrupted, her voice sharp. Not tonight. I don't want to discuss it. The sudden change in her demeanor was unsettling. But Grandma, she might be connected to our family. There are secrets in her diary. Some things are better left buried, she said. Her eyes clouded with a mixture of fear and sorrow, and I felt the conversation slip away like sand through my fingers. Frustration simmered within me as I left the table. My grandmother's avoidance only deepened the mystery surrounding Lucia, and I was more determined than ever to uncover the truth. That night, I met Tomas in class. He was the kind of person who had an infectious enthusiasm that drew people in, and I felt a spark of hope when he shared something intriguing. My grandfather said he was one of the last to see Lucia alive, he revealed, leaning closer, his eyes bright with excitement. We should investigate this together. I nodded, feeling an immediate connection. Yes, I've been digging into her past. There's so much to uncover, and I need someone who believes in this as much as I do. The following weekend, we found ourselves standing in front of Lucia's old house, the paint peeling and the garden overgrown. It felt like stepping back in time, and I was filled with a mixture of dread and excitement. It's eerie, isn't it? I whispered, glancing at Tomas. He nodded, his brow furrowed in concentration. It's like the house is holding its breath, waiting for someone to uncover its secrets. As we explored the dusty rooms, I stumbled upon a hidden compartment beneath a rotting floorboard. My heart raced as I pulled out a small wooden box. Inside, letters and faded paintings lay in disarray. Each letter was a glimpse into Lucia's life, revealing the depth of her emotions and the tumultuous relationship she had with her lover. Look at this, I said, holding up a letter. She wrote about meeting someone in secret. This must have been her forbidden love. Tomas peered over my shoulder, his eyes wide with fascination. This could be the key to understanding what happened to her. As we delved deeper into Lucia's world, I felt a strange bond forming between us. The more we uncovered, the closer we became. But it wasn't just our friendship that was evolving. I started to notice something odd about the necklace. It seemed to shimmer more brightly in moments of tension, as if it was responding to our emotions. Do you feel that? I asked Tomas one afternoon, holding the pendant in my palm. He looked at me, his expression serious. It feels alive, doesn't it? Yes, it's like it's connected to Lucia's spirit or something. I mused, a shiver running down my spine. The thought both thrilled and terrified me. What if it holds the key to unlocking her memories? He suggested, his excitement palpable. Let's test it, I replied, my heart racing. We spent hours experimenting, each time feeling the energy pulse through us as we touched the necklace, hoping to catch a glimpse of Lucia's past. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting shadows across my room, I grasped the necklace tightly, feeling its warmth radiate through my fingers. Images flashed before my eyes. Vivid scenes of Lucia painting, laughing, and then a shadow creeping in, darkening her joy. I gasped, releasing the pendant as the visions faded. What did you see? Tomas asked, his voice urgent. Something ominous. It felt like she was being watched. I replied, my heart pounding. Determined to uncover the truth, we continued our research, each piece of the puzzle bringing us closer to Lucia. And with every discovery, the bond between Tomas and me deepened, weaving us together in a tapestry of shared secrets and unresolved mysteries. The more I learned about Lucia's life, the more I felt like she was becoming a part of my own story, drawing me into a world of passion, intrigue, and danger that I could never have anticipated. As sun rays filtered through the dusty shelves of the university library, illuminating the faded spines of ancient books and forgotten tomes, I had spent countless hours in this sanctuary of knowledge, but today felt different. Today I was on a mission. The antique necklace I had found at the flea market was calling to me, its mystery begging to be unraveled. My heart raced as I walked past the rows of books, searching for any hint that could shed light on its past. Let's see what you have in store for me, I murmured to myself, flipping through the pages of a nearby book, but my mind was elsewhere, focused on the necklace that hung delicately from my neck. The moment I laid eyes on it, I felt an inexplicable connection, as if it belonged to me or I to it. I could almost hear the whispers of its past, beckoning me to discover its secrets. As I wandered deeper into the library, I stumbled upon a dusty, leather-bound diary tucked away on a high shelf. The title was barely legible, but I could make out the name Lucia. My heart skipped a beat. This was the name I had come across in my initial research about the necklace. With trembling hands, I pulled the diary down and opened it. The pages were yellowed with age, and the ink had faded, but the words still held a certain vibrancy that pulled me in. December 15th, 1925. I read aloud, my voice echoing softly in the quiet library. Today, I painted the most beautiful sunset I've ever seen. It reminded me of the time I spent with him by the river. If only my family understood. If only they could see how much I love him. My curiosity piqued further as I devoured the words on the pages. Lucia's dreams, her passions, her struggles with the confines of societal expectations leapt off the pages. As I turned each leaf, I felt a sense of camaraderie with her. I understood her longing, her desire to break free from the chains that bound her. But then, a chilling entry caught my eye. There is a curse in my family, a dark shadow that looms over us. My grandmother warned me, but I refused to live in fear. I will love him, no matter the consequences. I shivered at the thought. A curse? What kind of darkness had enveloped Lucia and her family? My mind raced with questions, and I felt compelled to dig deeper. Julia, a voice interrupted my thoughts, pulling me back to reality. It was Tomas, a classmate I had met in art history class. His dark hair was tousled, and his brown eyes sparkled with curiosity. "What are you doing here all alone?" "I found this diary," I said, showing him the fragile book. "It belonged to Lucia, the woman who owned the necklace I found. She talks about her dreams and a curse." Tomas stepped closer, peering over my shoulder. "Lucia, I read about her. She was a talented artist, but she disappeared under mysterious circumstances. My grandfather mentioned her once." "Really?" I leaned in closer, eager to learn more. "What did he say?" "He said she was seen with someone she shouldn't have been," Tomas replied, a hint of sadness creeping into his voice. "He always believed something terrible happened to her." A chill ran down my spine as I processed his words. What if her disappearance is connected to the curse she mentioned? Tomas nodded, his expression turning serious. "We should investigate. There might be more clues hidden in her past." With newfound determination, we decided to delve deeper into Lucia's story. We combed through the library archives, poring over old newspapers and family records. The more we uncovered, the more we realized that Lucia's life was a tapestry woven with secrets, love, and tragedy. It was as if each thread of her existence was leading us closer to the truth. As the days passed, Tomas and I grew closer, united by our shared quest. We often met at the library, sometimes discussing Lucia's life, other vezes lost in conversation about our own dreams and aspirations. I found myself drawn to him, his passion and kindness igniting a spark within me. One afternoon, while we sifted through a box filled with Lucia's belongings at her former home, we stumbled upon a hidden compartment beneath a loose floorboard. Inside, we found letters exchanged between Lucia and her lover, their words dripping with longing and despair. "Look at this," I said, holding up a letter. She wrote about wanting to escape, to be with him despite the risks. Tomas took the letter from my hand, his eyes scanning the words. "This is heartbreaking. They had to keep their love a secret. What if that's why she disappeared?" As we pieced together the fragments of Lucia's life, the necklace around my neck began to feel heavier, as though it bore the weight of her sorrow. I often caught it glinting in the light, especially when I felt a surge of emotion. It was as if the necklace was alive, resonating with the stories of its past. However, with each revelation came a growing sense of unease. One evening, as Tomas and I discussed our findings in a small cafe, I received a message on my phone. The sender was unknown, and the content sent chills down my spine. Stop digging. You don't know what you're getting into. What is it? Tomas asked, noticing my pale complexion. It's a message. Someone is warning me to stop, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Who would send something like that? He asked, concern etching his features. We have to be careful. My heart raced as I contemplated the implications. Someone wanted to keep Lucia's story buried, and it was clear they would go to great lengths to protect the secrets of the past. A few days later, as I lay in bed, the events of the past weeks swirled in my mind, and sleep eluded me. My thoughts were consumed by Lucia's fate and the warning I had received. Just as I was starting to drift off, a vivid dream enveloped me. In my dream, I found myself standing in a dimly lit room, surrounded by paintings that seemed to come alive in the flickering light. There, in the center, was Lucia, her eyes filled with desperation. "Help me, Julia," she implored, her voice echoing in the darkness. "They won't let me go. You must uncover the truth." I reached out to her, but she faded away, leaving me alone in the eerie silence. I awoke with a start, my heart pounding in my chest. The dream felt so real, and Lucia's plea resonated within me. I knew I had to continue the search, not just for Lucia but for myself. The following day, I met Tomas at the library, still shaken from my dream. "I had a vision of Lucia last night," I confessed, my voice trembling. "She needs our help. We have to find out what happened to her," Tomas said, determination shining in his eyes. "There must be more evidence somewhere." As we delved deeper into our research, we stumbled upon an old painting that depicted a tragic scene, an event that suggested Lucia might have been the victim of a crime. The pain etched in her face mirrored the anguish I had felt in my dream. This looks like a moment frozen in time," I said, my voice barely above a whisper as I traced the contours of the painting. What if she was trying to escape her fate? But as we discussed our findings, the air grew heavy with tension. My phone buzzed again, another message. "You're in over your head. Leave it alone." Tomas and I exchanged worried glances. The stakes were rising, and I could feel the danger lurking in the shadows. The more we uncovered, the more threatening the messages became. "We can't stop now," I said, my heart racing with both fear and resolve. Lucia deserves to have her story told, and we can't let anyone silence us. That night, I tossed and turned, unable to shake the feeling of impending doom. A sense of urgency gnawed at my insides, as if I were racing against time. Each tick of the clock echoed like a warning, and I couldn't ignore the feeling that someone was watching me. As I closed my eyes, I felt a chill sweep through the room, and in the darkness, I could almost hear Lucia's voice, faint but persistent. I knew I had to confront the truth no matter the cost. The sunlight filtered through the tall shelves of the university library, casting a warm glow on the dusty wooden tables. I made my way to my usual spot, a quiet nook tucked between two towering bookshelves. My heart raced with anticipation. I was on a mission to uncover the life of Lucia, the woman whose collar had inexplicably captured my attention just days prior. The memory of that market visit lingered in my mind like a haunting melody. "Hey, Julia!" A familiar voice interrupted my thoughts. Tomas, a classmate I had recently befriended, approached with an eager look on his face. "Any luck with your research?" I nodded, excitement bubbling within me. "I found an old diary that belonged to Lucia. It's filled with her dreams, but it also hints at something dark, a curse that affected her family." Tomas's eyes widened. "A curse? That sounds intense. What do you know about it?" I leaned in closer, lowering my voice. "Her grandmother might have hidden secrets about Lucia's life. There's a mention of a love affair and something tragic that happened. I think it's all connected." "Let's dig deeper," he suggested, enthusiasm lighting up his features. "If Lucia's story is as intriguing as I think it is, we might uncover something remarkable." Together, we delved into Lucia's diary, poring over the faded pages filled with delicate handwriting. Each entry painted a picture of a young artist with dreams of grandeur, battling the constraints of her time. But as we read on, the tone shifted. The entries grew darker, filled with hints of a forbidden love and an impending doom. "Look at this," I pointed out, my finger tracing a particular passage. "She talks about a maldecao that haunts her family. It's like she knew something was coming." Tomas furrowed his brow. "This is getting eerie. Do you think your grandmother knows about this?" "I have to find out," I replied, determination hardening my voice. "I just wish she would talk to me about Lucia." As if the universe was testing me, I decided to confront my grandmother. She was a woman of few words, a keeper of secrets, and I knew this wouldn't be easy. I took a deep breath and entered her living room, the familiar scent of lavender wafting through the air. "Grandma, can we talk?" I asked, my heart pounding. She looked up from her knitting, her expression unreadable. "About what, dear?" "About Lucia. I found her diary and I think there's more to her story than you've told me." A shadow flickered across her face. "Some things are better left in the past, Julia. You don't understand the dangers of digging too deep." "Dangers?" Pressed. "But I need to know. She's part of our family history." My grandmother sighed, her gaze drifting to the window. "You might not like what you find. Some truths are more dangerous than you imagine." Frustrated, I withdrew from the conversation, feeling the weight of unspoken secrets pressing down on me. I needed answers, and I was determined to find them, even if it meant going against my grandmother's wishes. That evening, I met Tomas at a cafe near campus, my mind racing with everything I had learned. "She won't talk to me about Lucia," I admitted, stirring my coffee absent-mindedly. "It's like she's afraid. Maybe she's hiding something," Tomas suggested, leaning forward. "What if there's a connection between your family and Lucia that they don't want you to know?" "Exactly. That's why I think we should investigate her past further," I replied, a sense of urgency fueling my desire to uncover the truth. The next day, we decided to visit the house where Lucia had lived. The plan was simple: explore the place and see if we could find any artifacts or documents that would shed light on her life. As we walked through the overgrown garden, I felt a strange sense of being watched, as if the very walls of the house held memories waiting to be uncovered. "Let's check the attic first," Tomas suggested, glancing at the old wooden door that led up to the dusty space. With a nod, we climbed the creaky stairs, the air growing thicker with each step. The attic was a treasure trove of forgotten items, old furniture covered in sheets, boxes filled with yellowed papers, and paintings that seemed to cry out for attention. My heart raced as I rummaged through a box in the corner. Suddenly, my fingers brushed against something smooth and cool. "Tomas, come here," I called, pulling out a small, ornate box. Inside, we found letters tied with a faded ribbon. "These must be Lucia's letters," I exclaimed. As we read through them, my heart sank. They were love letters, passionate and full of longing. Lucia had been in love with someone she couldn't be with, and the pain of her words resonated deeply within me. "This is incredible, Julia," Tomas said, his voice low with awe. "These letters could hold the key to understanding her life." Just then, I noticed something else in the box. An old painting, its colors dulled with time. As I pulled it out, I felt a strange pull, as if the image was trying to communicate something to me. The painting depicted a vibrant woman with a striking resemblance to my grandmother. My breath caught in my throat. "Tomas, look at this. She looks just like my grandmother," I exclaimed, my mind racing with questions. "What if they knew each other?" "Maybe they did," he replied, studying the painting intently. "This could change everything." As we continued our search, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were getting closer to a truth that had been buried for too long. But with each revelation came an unsettling sensation that someone was watching us, as if Lucia's spirit lingered in the shadows, guarding her secrets. Days passed, and our investigation intensified. We found more artifacts, old photographs, sketches, and even a diary entry that hinted at a tragic event in Lucia's life. Each piece of the puzzle only deepened the mystery, and I could feel the weight of the truth pressing down on me. One evening, as I was reviewing our findings at home, I received an anonymous message on my phone. Stop digging into Lucia's past. Some truths should remain buried. My heart raced, fear creeping in. Who could be behind this? I showed the message to Tomas the Seguinte. This is getting serious, he said, concern etched on his face. We need to be careful. I won't back down, I replied defiantly. I have to know what happened to her. That night, as I lay in bed, I was plagued by vivid dreams. I found myself standing in a dimly lit room, with Lucia appearing before me, her eyes pleading. Help me, she whispered, her voice echoing in my mind. You must uncover the truth. I woke up in a cold sweat, my heart pounding. The dream felt so real, so urgent. I had to confront my grandmother again. There was no turning back. Grandma, I called, storming into her room the next morning. I had a dream about Lucia. She needs my help, and I need to know the truth. My grandmother's face paled. You shouldn't be involved in this, Julia. You don't understand the dangers. Stop protecting me. I'm not a child anymore. I deserve to know what happened. My voice trembled with emotion. She hesitated, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Lucia was taken from us. Her love led to her downfall. I did what I thought was best. The truth hung heavy between us, and I could sense the weight of her unspoken words. What do you mean? What happened to her? My grandmother sighed deeply, a resigned look crossing her face. It's not just her story, Julia. It's ours. The Maldaceo, it was meant to protect our family from the same fate. I thought keeping it a secret would keep you safe. Safe from what? I pressed, desperation clawing at my insides. From the darkness that took Lucia, she whispered, her voice barely audible. You must understand. Some truths are more dangerous than you can imagine. As she spoke, I felt a sense of resolve wash over me. I would not be silenced. I had to break the cycle of fear and secrecy that had plagued our family for generations. I would uncover the truth no matter the cost. As I sat on my bed, the antique necklace lay before me, glimmering faintly in the evening light. The intricate designs of the pendant seemed to dance as the sun cast its golden rays through my window. It was as if the necklace held secrets of its own, whispering to me, begging to be understood. I could hardly shake the feeling that it was more than just a piece of jewelry. It was a connection to something far deeper, something that tied me to Lucia, the woman who once wore it. Tomas, I called out, my voice barely above a whisper. He had been my partner in this strange investigation, and I knew he would be just as intrigued by the necklace as I was. Moments later, he appeared at my door, his brow furrowed in curiosity. What's up? He asked, stepping inside my room. His eyes immediately fell on the necklace, and I noticed a flicker of recognition in his gaze. I think there's something more to this necklace, I said, picking it up gently between my fingers. It feels alive somehow, like it's reacting to my thoughts or feelings. Tomas approached, leaning in closer to examine it. Alive? That sounds a bit dramatic, Julia, he teased, but there was a hint of seriousness in his tone. What do you mean? I don't know how to explain it, I replied, feeling a shiver run down my spine. Every time I touch it, I feel this rush of emotions. It's like I can sense Lucia's presence. There has to be a reason why the old woman sold it to me. Maybe it's tied to her story in some way. Tomas nodded slowly, clearly intrigued. Let's test it. Maybe there's a way to see if it reacts to something specific. With that, we began to experiment. I held the necklace tightly in my hand, trying to focus on my emotions. The excitement of uncovering Lucia's past, the fear of what we might find, and the connection I felt to her. As I concentrated, the pendant began to glow faintly, a soft light emanating from within, almost as if it were breathing in sync with my heartbeat. Did you see that? I exclaimed, my eyes wide. It's glowing. I swear it wasn't doing this before. Yeah, I saw it, Tomas replied, his own excitement building. What if it's reacting to your emotional state? Try thinking about Lucia. I closed my eyes, picturing Lucia as I had seen her in the painting. A beautiful woman with an enigmatic smile. I imagined her laughter, her dreams, the love she had for her art, and the pain of her lost life. As I did, the glow intensified, casting warm hues of gold and orange throughout the room. "Julia," Tomas said, his voice low and awed. "This is incredible. It's like the necklace is a bridge to her memories." I opened my eyes, my heart racing. It's almost as if she's trying to communicate with us. But how? What does she want us to know? "Maybe we need to find a way to access those memories," Tomas suggested. "What if we can unlock something more, like a vision or a memory from her past?" I nodded, my mind racing. "Let's try it. I'll hold the necklace and you can guide me. Maybe we can both focus on Lucia and see what happens." Tomas positioned himself beside me, his presence grounding me as I clutched the necklace tightly. "All right, just relax. Let's think about her life together. Her art, her love, everything we've learned so far." As we both concentrated, I felt the room around me begin to fade. The soft hum of our breathing transformed into a melodic whisper, and suddenly, I was no longer in my bedroom. I found myself standing in a sunlit studio, surrounded by canvases splashed with color. The air was thick with the scent of paint and the sound of a brush gliding smoothly across the canvas. "Lucia," I called out, my voice echoing through the space. "Are you here?" A figure emerged from the shadows, and my breath caught in my throat. It was her, Lucia, radiant and alive, with her auburn hair cascading over her shoulders and a paint-splattered apron tied around her waist. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice melodic yet cautious. "Why have you come here?" "I'm Julia," I replied, my heart pounding. "I found your necklace, and I want to know your story. I want to understand what happened to you." Lucia's expression softened, and she stepped closer, her eyes searching mine. "The necklace, it has been waiting for someone to find it. It holds the memories of my life, my dreams, my pain. But be warned, child, some memories are best left undisturbed. Please," I urged, desperation creeping into my voice. "I need to know. My family. There's a connection between us, and it feels like I'm part of your story." Lucia's gaze flickered with recognition, and she nodded slowly. "Then you must see the truth. Follow me." With that, she turned and led me through the studio, where paintings of every shade and hue adorned the walls. Each canvas seemed to tell a story, a fragment of her life. One painting caught my eye, a beautiful landscape, but there was something dark lurking in the background. "What is that?" I asked, pointing to the shadowy figure in the distance. Lucia's expression turned somber. "That was my past, a reminder of the darkness that followed me. Love can be a powerful force, but it can also lead to tragedy." I felt a chill run down my spine. "Is that why you disappeared? Because of love?" She sighed, her eyes filled with sorrow. "Yes, I loved someone I was forbidden to be with, and the consequences were dire. The necklace was meant to protect me, a charm to keep my spirit alive. But it has become a burden for those who follow." "Burden?" I echoed. "What do you mean?" "The curse that afflicts my family," she replied, her voice trembling. "It has haunted us for generations. Each woman who inherits the necklace carries the weight of the past. It is both a blessing and a curse." I looked down at the necklace, now warm in my hand, and realized the truth behind her words. "So it's not just a connection to you, but also to the pain your family endured." Lucia nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Yes, and now it seems the curse has found you. What can I do?" I asked, desperation flooding my voice. "I don't want to carry this burden. I want to break the cycle." "You must reveal the truth," Lucia said, her voice steady now. "Face the darkness within your family. Only then can the curse be lifted, and my spirit be finally freed." Before I could respond, the studio began to fade, the colors blending into a swirling vortex of light. I felt myself being pulled away from Lucia, her figure becoming more distant. "Wait!" I shouted, reaching out to her. "I promise I'll uncover the truth. I'll break the curse. Remember, Julia?" she called out as her image faded. You are stronger than you know. Trust in your heart. With that, I was jolted back to reality, my room coming into foco once again. Tomas sat beside me, his expression a mix of awe and concern. What just happened? You were gone for a moment there. I saw her, I replied breathlessly. Lucia was alive and she spoke to me. She told me about the curse and how it's connected to my family. Tomas's eyes widened. That's incredible. What did she say? She said I need to face the truth about my family. I explained, the weight of her words heavy on my shoulders. We need to uncover the secrets that have been hidden for so long. Are you ready for that? Tomas asked, his voice steady but filled with concern. It might not be easy. I have to be, I replied, determination filling my heart. If it means freeing Lucia and breaking this curse, I'll do whatever it takes. As I looked down at the necklace, I felt a newfound sense of purpose. The connection to Lucia was stronger than ever, and I realized that I wasn't just uncovering her past. I was also discovering my own. The journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, but I was ready to embrace whatever came next. Together, Tomas and I would unravel the threads of our intertwined destinies, and maybe, just maybe, we could bring peace to both our families. The air was heavy with anticipation as Tomas and I approached the crumbling remains of the mansion where Lucia had disappeared. The once grand structure loomed over us, its dark silhouette etched against the fading light of the setting sun. I felt a shiver run down my spine, a mix of excitement and dread pulsating in my veins. This was the moment we had been working toward, the culmination of our investigation into Lucia's life and the secrets that surrounded her. Are you sure you want to do this? Tomas asked, glancing at me with concern etched on his face. The shadows around us seemed to deepen, as if the mansion itself were holding its breath, waiting to reveal its secrets. I nodded, swallowing hard. We have to know what happened to her. She deserves that much. My fingers brushed against the cool surface of the ancient collar around my neck, a constant reminder of the connection I felt to Lucia. It pulsed slightly, as if resonating with my emotions, urging me on. We stepped through the broken gate, the rusty hinges creaking ominously as if protesting our intrusion. The overgrown garden had long since reclaimed the land, wildflowers blooming defiantly among the weeds. I could almost imagine Lucia wandering here, her laughter mingling with the whispers of the wind. But that laughter had been silenced, and I was determined to uncover the truth. As we approached the front door, I hesitated for a moment, my hand hovering over the doorknob. What if we find something? Something we're not ready for? I whispered, suddenly overwhelmed by the weight of what lay ahead. Tomas placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. We've come this far, Julia. We can't turn back now. We owe it to her. His voice was steady, grounding me, and I took a deep breath, steeling myself for whatever awaited us inside. With a firm grip, I twisted the doorknob and pushed the door open. It groaned in protest, revealing a darkened foyer filled with dust and decay. Sunlight streamed through the broken windows, casting eerie shadows that danced along the walls. The air was stale, heavy with the scent of mildew and memories long forgotten. Stay close, Tomas said, his voice low as we stepped inside. The floorboards creaked beneath our feet, each sound echoing in the silence like a ghostly whisper. I could feel my heart racing, a primal instinct urging me to flee, but I fought against it. This was where Lucia had lived, where her life had unraveled. We had to know the truth. We moved cautiously through the dimly lit hallway, our footsteps muffled by the thick layer of dust. The walls were adorned with faded paintings, their colors dulled by time, but I could still make out the intricate brushstrokes that hinted at the beauty they once held. These must be Lucia's, I murmured, my fingers grazing the edge of a cracked frame. She was an artist. I can see that, Tomas replied, scanning the room with a mix of awe and sadness. Her talent must have been incredible. As we ventured deeper into the mansion, we stumbled upon a staircase spiraling upward into darkness. I hesitated, a sense of foreboding washing over me. Should we go up? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Let's check the ground floor first, Tomas suggested, glancing toward a door at the end of the hallway. We might find something important in there. We made our way to the door, and I felt a flutter of nerves in my stomach. Tomas pushed it open, revealing a small, cluttered room filled with old furniture and boxes piled high. The remnants of Lucia's life were scattered everywhere, each object a fragment of her story waiting to be uncovered. Look at this, Tomas said, crouching beside a dusty box. He pulled it open, revealing a collection of letters tied together with a faded ribbon. They looked like love letters. My heart raced as he carefully untied the ribbon, revealing the delicate parchment within. They might give us some insight into her life, I said, leaning in closer. Who were they from? Tomas scanned the first letter, his brow furrowing. It says here, "My dearest Lucia, every moment without you feels like an eternity." He paused, glancing up at me. This is from someone named Raphael. Raphael? I repeated, the name rolling off my tongue like a forgotten melody. I wonder who he was. Tomas continued reading, his voice softening. He talks about a secret rendezvous in the garden, how they would meet under the moonlight. He looked up, his eyes wide with excitement. Julia, this could be the love that was deemed forbidden. This might explain why she disappeared. I felt a rush of emotions, curiosity, compassion, and a sense of urgency. We need to find out more about him. Maybe he knows what happened to her. Just then, a strange noise echoed through the room, a soft rustling sound that made my skin crawl. I exchanged a worried glance with Tomas. Did you hear that? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He nodded, his expression serious. It came from over there. He pointed to a corner where a heavy curtain hung, swaying slightly as if a breeze had passed through. But there was no open window, only the stillness of the room. Should we check it out? I asked, my heart racing. What if it's something? Tomas hesitated, then nodded. Together, okay? I took a deep breath, steeling myself, and we approached the curtain. As I reached out to pull it aside, a cold draft brushed against my skin, causing me to shiver. I pulled the curtain back, revealing a small alcove that had been hidden in shadows. In the alcove, I gasped. There, on a pedestal, was an exquisite painting, vibrant colors captured in strokes of brilliance. It depicted a scene of a young woman standing in a moonlit garden, her face serene yet filled with longing. My breath caught in my throat as I realized it was Lucia. Oh my God! Tomas, look! I exclaimed, stepping closer. This is her. Tomas moved beside me, his eyes wide. It's beautiful. She looks peaceful. As our gazes lingered on the painting, an overwhelming sense of connection washed over me. I felt Lucia's presence in a way I hadn't before, a pull that drew me closer to her story. What if this was painted by Raphael? I whispered, my mind racing with possibilities. Maybe it was, Tomas replied, his voice filled with awe. There's so much emotion in this piece. It's like she's calling out to us. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. The air became thick with tension, and I felt a chill envelop me, as if an unseen force had entered the room. I exchanged a worried glance with Tomas, who looked equally unsettled. Do you feel that? I asked, my voice trembling. He nodded slowly. Yeah, it's like something's here. Just then, I noticed a faint glow emanating from the collar around my neck. It pulsed gently, casting a warm light that seemed to fill the room with energy. Tomas, look, I said, pointing to the collar. It's reacting. What does that mean? He asked, his eyes wide with wonder. I don't know, but it feels like it's trying to tell us something, I replied, my heart racing. The glow intensified, illuminating the painting and casting ethereal shadows across the walls. In that moment, I felt a connection to Lucia, an unbreakable bond that transcended time. As we stood there, the air crackled with energy, and I felt a presence surrounding us. An urgency, a plea for resolution. We need to find out what happened to her, I said firmly, determination surging within me. Tomas nodded, his expression serious. Let's keep looking. There has to be more here. With renewed purpose, we left the alcove behind and continued our exploration of the mansion. The walls seemed to whisper secrets as we moved, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of fabric, heightened my senses. We made our way to the back of the mansion, where a door led to what appeared to be a once grand ballroom. The remnants of a lavish life were evident in the ornate chandeliers hanging from the ceiling, their crystals dulled by years of neglect. The floor was covered in a thick layer of dust, but as I stepped inside, I felt an inexplicable energy coursing through me. Can you imagine the parties that must have taken place here? Tomas said, his voice filled with awe. It must have been beautiful. Yes, I replied, my gaze drifting around the room. But it feels so empty now. Suddenly, a flash of movement caught my eye. I turned to see a figure darting across the far corner of the room. A fleeting shadow that vanished before I could fully register what I had seen. My heart raced as I gasped, gripping Tomas's arm. Did you see that? I asked, my voice trembling. He nodded, eyes wide with shock. What was that? It looked like someone. Lucia, I whispered, a chill running down my spine. Do you think she's here? I don't know, Tomas replied, his voice as I stood in the dim light of the old mansion's attic. Dust motes danced in the air, swirling around me like whispers of the past. My heart raced as I examined the remnants of Lucia's life that surrounded me. Each item seemed to pulse with a story waiting to be uncovered. The air was thick with secrets, and I could feel the weight of history pressing down on my shoulders. I had come so far in my quest to understand the woman behind the haunting collar, and yet I felt like I was just scratching the surface. I had made a pact with Tomas to unravel the mysteries entwined in our family's histories. With each new discovery, our connection deepened, and the pull of Lucia's story became an inseparable part of me. But what I had not anticipated was how profoundly this journey would challenge my understanding of family and legacy. Julia, look at this, Tomas exclaimed, his voice echoing softly in the empty space as he lifted a painting from the floor. It was a portrait of a young woman with striking features, dark hair cascading over her shoulders, eyes filled with a mix of sorrow and strength. I felt a shiver run down my spine. It was Lucia. The brushstrokes captured not just her likeness, but an essence that seemed to reach out to me. It's beautiful, I breathed, stepping closer to examine the details. She looks so alive, doesn't she? Tomas nodded, his expression serious. It's like she's looking right at you, pleading for someone to remember her. For a moment, we stood in silence, the weight of her gaze wrapping around us like a shroud. I felt a sudden urge to know more, to understand not just Lucia's life, but also the connection she had with my family. What if this is how we break the cycle? I suggested, my thoughts racing. What if by bringing Lucia's story to light, we can finally set her free? Tomas turned to me, his brow furrowed in thought. You think uncovering the truth will help? What if it only brings more pain? I shook my head, frustration bubbling within me. But we can't keep hiding from the past. My grandmother doesn't want to talk about it, but I have to know. There has to be a reason for the silence. Maybe it's time to confront her again? Tomas raised an eyebrow, his expression a mix of encouragement and caution. Absolutely, I replied, determination swelling in my chest. I can't let fear dictate my future or Lucia's any longer. As we continued to sift through Lucia's belongings, I stumbled upon an ornate box tucked away in a corner. My fingers trembled as I opened it to reveal a collection of letters, fragile and yellowed with age. Each envelope bore Lucia's name, and my heart raced as I carefully unfolded one of the letters. Read this, I urged Tomas, handing him a crumpled piece of paper. I could barely contain my excitement, the thrill of discovery fueling my resolve. He took the letter and scanned it quickly. It's a love letter, he said, a hint of awe in his voice. She was writing to someone named Raphael. It's beautiful, Julia. I leaned closer, reading over his shoulder. I can't believe this. She had a love, someone she cared about deeply. As I read, I felt an ache in my heart for Lucia, for the love that seemed so close yet so unattainable. But as we delved deeper into the letters, a darker undertone emerged. One letter hinted at a looming threat, a warning from Lucia to Raphael about the dangers of their love. They were in danger, I murmured, the weight of her words heavy in the air. This isn't just a love story, it's a tragedy in the making. Tomas's expression shifted to concern. This could explain the Maldaceo. Maybe it was to protect her from the very forces that were after them. I looked at him, realization dawning upon me. And if my family was somehow involved, if they were the ones who kept her secrets hidden, then you have every right to find out the truth, he replied firmly, his gaze steady. We spent hours going through the letters, piecing together fragments of Lucia's life, the hopes and dreams she held dear, and the love that ultimately seemed doomed. The deeper we dug, the more I began to understand the weight of the secrets that had been passed down through generations. The silence that surrounded my grandmother was not just about protecting me. It was a shield against a painful legacy. As I read one last letter aloud, a sense of urgency filled the room. I can't live without you, Raphael. If you love me, you'll find a way to protect us both. I recited, my voice trembling. What happened, Lucia? What did you fear? Tomas looked at me, his expression grave. We need to confront your grandmother. She might have answers, Julia. We can't let her silence keep us from knowing Lucia's truth. I nodded, steeling myself for the confrontation ahead. I will talk to her. I have to. The next day, I found the courage to visit my grandmother. The air in her cozy living room felt charged with tension as I settled into the worn armchair, the same one I had sat in countless times as a child. She looked up from her knitting, her brow furrowing slightly as she sensed my unease. "What is it, dear?" she asked, her voice calm but her eyes wary. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding. "I need to know about Lucia," I said, my voice steady. "I found her letters, and I want to understand what happened to her." My grandmother's hands froze mid-stitch, and she stared at me, a mix of shock and fear crossing her face. "You shouldn't have gone looking for things that are best left buried," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why? Why can't you just tell me?" I pressed, frustration bubbling within me. She was part of our family. I deserved to know the truth. With a heavy sigh, my grandmother set her knitting aside and looked at me with a pained expression. "Julia, some truths are too painful to bear. Lucia, she was loved, yes, but her life was marred by tragedy. The world was not kind to her, and our family made choices to protect you." "Protect me from what?" I demanded, my voice rising. "From knowing my own history? From understanding the Maldaceo that haunts us?" Her eyes softened, but the weight of her silence lingered. Lucia was in love with a man from another world, one that our family deemed unworthy. They hid their love, but it was doomed from the start. I thought keeping you away from her story would keep you safe. "Safe?" I echoed, incredulous. "How can I feel safe when I don't even know what I'm supposed to be afraid of?" My grandmother's gaze fell to the floor, and I could see the torment etched on her face. "You don't understand, Julia. The ties that bind us to the past can be more powerful than we can handle. Lucia's fate was sealed long ago, and I did what I had to in order to protect the family. By lying to me, I shot back, my heart racing. By keeping me in the dark, I did it out of love," she said, her voice breaking. "I thought I was shielding you from pain, but perhaps I was wrong." Silence enveloped us, thick and suffocating. My mind raced with thoughts of Lucia, of the love that had thrived even in darkness, and the truth that had been denied to me. I realized then that my grandmother's love had become a prison, one that held both of us captive. "Lucia deserves to be remembered," I said finally, my voice steady. "I refuse to let her story die with your silence. We can't keep pretending this never happened." Tears glistened in my grandmother's eyes, but she remained silent. I felt a pang of sadness for her, for the burden she carried, but I also felt a fierce resolve to break free from the cycle of silence that had plagued our family for too long. I'll uncover Lucia's story, with or without your help, I declared, standing up from the chair, my heart racing with newfound determination. And I will honor her memory. As I left my grandmother's house, I felt a mixture of anger and sadness, but more than anything, I felt a sense of purpose. Lucia's story was not just hers. It was mine too. I would fight to ensure that her voice was heard, that her love was honored, and that the secrets of our families did not chain us to the past any longer. For the first time, I felt the weight of the collar around my neck, a tangible connection to Lucia's spirit, and I knew that I would not rest until I uncovered the truth. The air was thick with tension as I stood outside my grandmother's house, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. I had spent countless hours sifting through the remnants of Lucia's life, piecing together the fragments of a story that had been long buried under layers of silence. But now, standing before the door that had always felt like a barrier between us, I knew it was time to confront the woman who had held the key to my family's secrets for far too long. I raised my hand, hesitating for just a moment before knocking. The sound echoed in the stillness, a prelude to the confrontation I had been dreading and yearning for all at once. Moments later, the door creaked open, revealing my grandmother's familiar face, lined with years of wisdom and worry. Her eyes widened slightly as she took in my determined expression. "Julia?" she asked, her voice trembling ever so slightly. "Is everything all right?" "Not really, Grandma," I replied, my voice steady, though my insides churned with anxiety. "I need to talk to you. It's about Lucia." At the mention of Lucia's name, I saw a flicker of something, fear, perhaps, pass across her features. She stepped aside, allowing me to enter, but I knew this discussion wouldn't be easy. The living room was filled with the familiar scent of lavender and old books, but the atmosphere felt charged, as if the very walls held their breath, anticipating the storm that was about to unfold. "Please sit down," my grandmother said, gesturing toward the worn armchair opposite her. I could feel the weight of her gaze on me as I settled into the chair, the fabric cool against my skin. "Grandma, I found out a lot about Lucia." I began, my voice firm. "I found her diary, the letters, the paintings. I know that she was your friend, and I know that something terrible happened to her." Her eyes darkened, and for a moment, I feared she might shut me down again. But instead, she sighed deeply, the sound almost like a resignation. "Julia, some things are better left in the past. You don't understand the danger." "No," I interrupted, my voice rising unexpectedly. "You don't get to dismiss this. I have seen the pain that this silence has caused. It's affecting our family, and it's time to break the cycle. What happened to Lucia? Why did she disappear?" My grandmother's expression hardened, and for a moment, I thought she might refuse to answer altogether. But then, her shoulders sagged as if the weight of her secrets had become too much to bear. "It's not that simple," she murmured, almost to herself. "Lucia was what?" I pressed, leaning forward. "Was she in love? Was she murdered? Did you know?" "Lucia was more than just a friend to me," she said, her voice cracking. "We were like sisters, but her love was forbidden, and it brought danger to our lives. You have to understand. Sometimes, keeping quiet is the only way to protect the ones you love." "Protect me from what?" I shot back, frustration bubbling over. "From the truth? Grandma, I need to know." I found the letters that spoke of a love she had to hide. What happened to him? What happened to her? Tears glimmered in her eyes, and for a moment, I thought she might finally let it all spill out. Instead, she turned away, her back to me, as if the very act of facing me was too painful. "You're too young to understand the consequences of those choices. We thought we could keep it all buried, but the past has a way of haunting us." "Then let it haunt us," I exclaimed, my voice rising with desperation. "Let it come out into the light. I don't want to live in the shadow of this family curse any longer. If Lucia's story is tied to ours, we need to face it together." She turned to me then, her expression a mix of sorrow and rage. You don't know what you're asking for, Julia. You think you're ready to uncover the truth, but it could destroy you. Or it could free me, I retorted, my heart racing. You don't have to carry this alone anymore. We can face it together. Just tell me what happened to Lucia. My grandmother's resolve crumbled, and she sank into the chair across from me, her hands trembling. Lucia fell in love with a man from the wrong side of town. He was charming and passionate, but his family, they were not kind. They didn't approve of her. When they found out about their relationship, they threatened her. Threatened her? I echoed, my mind racing. What do you mean? They wanted to keep her away from him. They thought that by isolating her, they could break her spirit. I tried to help her, but I was young and scared. We both were. Her voice broke, and I could see the pain etched into her features. Did they hurt her? I asked, my heart racing. No, she whispered, her gaze dropping to her hands. Not physically, but when she tried to leave town with him, something terrible happened. They took her from me, from all of us. Taken? By who? I pressed, desperate for clarity. The family, she replied, almost in a whisper. They were powerful, and they wanted to make sure Lucia wouldn't leave. They didn't want their reputation tarnished by a scandal. So they made her disappear. Disappeared? You mean she was murdered? I felt sick at the thought, the weight of the truth settling heavily upon my shoulders. My grandmother nodded slowly, the tears finally spilling down her cheeks. I didn't want to believe it. We searched everywhere, but we never found her. The police didn't take it seriously. They said she was just a runaway. But she wasn't, I said, my voice thick with emotion. She was in love. She was taken from you, from everyone who cared about her. I lived with that guilt for years, she said, her voice trembling. I thought if I forgot, if I buried it deep, no one else would have to suffer. But that was a lie. The truth always finds a way to surface. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. The curse, it's tied to Lucia's pain, isn't it? It's a cycle of silence and suffering that has haunted our family for generations. My grandmother looked at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and regret. I thought keeping it a secret would protect you, but I see now that I only passed down the burden of that silence. The curse isn't just about Lucia, it's about all of us. Then we need to break it. I urged her, my voice steady. We need to honor Lucia's memory and tell her story. We can't let her pain continue to haunt us. I wish it were that simple, she replied, her voice heavy with sorrow. The truth has consequences, Julia. People don't always react kindly to the past being unearthed. There are those who would rather keep it hidden. Let them try, I said fiercely. I'm not afraid anymore. I want to honor Lucia, to show the world who she really was. She deserves that. We deserve that. My grandmother's expression softened slightly, a flicker of pride mixed with fear. You're so brave, my dear. I wish I had your strength. But I can't let you take on this burden alone. If we're going to do this, we have to do it together. I felt a rush of gratitude wash over me. Thank you, Grandma. I promise we'll figure this out. Together. As we sat across from each other, the weight of the past hanging heavily in the air, I realized that I was no longer just a passive observer in my family's story. I was a part of it, and it was time to reclaim our narrative. Together, we would face the darkness that had haunted us for too long. Together, we would honor Lucia and break the cycle of silence that had kept her story buried in the shadows. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm golden hue across my room, my heart raced with anticipation. I stood at the edge of a precipice, teetering between the past that had haunted my family for generations and the truth that awaited just beyond the veil of mystery. The necklace glimmered in my hand, its aged surface somehow alive, pulsing with energy that seemed to resonate with my very soul. I could feel it, the weight of Lucia's story pressing down on me, urging me to uncover the truth that had been buried for far too long. Julia, Tomas said softly, his voice cutting through the thick air of anticipation. Are you sure about this? Once we reveal Lucia's story, there's no turning back. I turned to him, meeting his gaze, which was filled with a mixture of concern and support. I have to do this, Tomas. Lucia deserves to be remembered, to have her story told. If I don't do it, then what was all this for? What's the point of having come this far? He nodded slowly, understanding the fire that burned within me. I had felt a connection to Lucia since the moment I laid my eyes on that necklace. And now, with every secret unraveled, the bond between us deepened. Okay, he finally said, determination etched across his face. Let's do it together. As we stood there, the air around us thickened with an almost electric charge, and I could swear I felt Lucia's presence drawing closer. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath as I clutched the necklace tighter. I could hear the whisper of the wind outside, almost as if it were urging me forward. Lucia, I murmured, I'm ready to tell your story. With a final glance at Tomas, I stepped toward the window, opening it wide to let the cool evening breeze flow into the room. The world outside seemed to hold its breath, as if it too awaited the revelation that was about to unfold. I took a step back, the necklace shimmering in the fading light, and began to speak. Lucia, a talented artist with dreams that soared beyond the confines of her time. A woman whose love was deemed forbidden, and a life shrouded in mystery. Her story deserves to be heard, to be honored for the beauty it contained and the pain it endured. As I spoke, the necklace glowed faintly, pulsating with a life of its own. Suddenly, the air shifted, heavy with emotion, and I felt a rush of energy enveloping me. It was as if a doorway had opened, and through it, I could see her, Lucia, ethereal and beautiful, standing before me in a vision. Her dark hair cascaded over her shoulders, and her expressive eyes sparkled with a mixture of sorrow and hope. Julia, she said, her voice a soft melody that echoed in my mind. You have finally come to set me free. My breath caught in my throat, and I stumbled back slightly, but Tomas steadied me. Lucia, is that really you? I asked, disbelief mingling with wonder. Yes, she replied, a gentle smile gracing her lips. I have been waiting for someone brave enough to uncover the truth. The necklace you hold is more than just an object. It is a key to my past and a bridge to our bloodline. Bloodline? I echoed, my mind racing. What do you mean? Lucia stepped closer, her presence warm and inviting. You are my descendant, Julia. The stories of my life, my love, and my pain have been passed down through generations. But the truth was hidden, buried beneath layers of fear and silence. Your family has carried my burden, and it is time to break the cycle. I felt the ground shift beneath me, the weight of her words sinking deep into my core. But why? Why was the truth hidden? What happened to you? Her expression turned somber, and I could feel the pain that lingered within her. I fell in love with a man my family disapproved of, and our love was deemed a shameful secret. When they discovered our affair, I was silenced. My life taken before I could fulfill my dreams. The curse that binds our families is a protection, meant to shield the women in our line from the same fate. Tomas stepped forward, his voice steady. But how can we end the curse? How can we free you? Lucia's gaze shifted to him, her expression softening. To break the curse, you must reveal the truth of my life, my love, and my tragic end. Only then can the chains binding our families be shattered. I felt a surge of determination coursing through me. I will not let your story fade into obscurity, Lucia. I will tell everyone what happened to you. Your art, your love, and the truth of your life will be shared with the world. Thank you, Julia, she said, her voice tremulous with emotion. But be cautious. There are forces that do not wish for the truth to be unveiled. They will try to stop you. Tomas and I exchanged a knowing glance, the gravity of her words weighing heavily upon us. We're not afraid, I declared. We've come this far. We won't back down now. Lucia's smile returned, brighter this time, illuminating the shadows that lingered in the room. You carry my spirit, Julia. You are stronger than you know. Trust in your purpose, and the truth shall be your ally. As she spoke, the room filled with a radiant light, and I felt a wave of warmth enveloping me, as if Lucia's energy was merging with my own. The necklace pulsed in response, glowing brighter with each passing moment. I could feel the connection between us deepening, the threads of our fates intertwining. "Now go," Lucia urged, her voice echoing as the light around us began to fade. "Tell my story, and in doing so, you shall free us both." The vision began to dissipate, and I found myself standing in my room once more, the necklace still clutched tightly in my hand. Tomas looked at me, his expression a mix of awe and determination. "What just happened? Did you really see her?" "Yes," I breathed, still trying to process the whirlwind of emotions that had just swept through me.
"Es real, Tomás."
"She's my ancestor, and she needs us to tell her story." His eyes widened, the weight of the moment sinking in. "Then let's do it. We need to get this story out there. Every detail, every brushstroke of her life. We'll make sure everyone knows who she was." I nodded, my heart racing with purpose. "We'll start with the gallery. We'll use her paintings and the diary to piece together her story, and then we'll share it with the world." With a newfound sense of clarity, we began to strategize, our plans taking shape as we delved deeper into Lucia's life. I could feel her spirit guiding us, whispering encouragement as we worked late into the night, fueled by a passion that transcended time. As dawn broke, illuminating the room with a soft glow, I realized that we were no longer just uncovering Lucia's past. We were forging a new future for ourselves, one free from the shadows that had haunted our families for far too long. The truth would be told, and with it, Lucia would finally find peace. The cycle of silence and pain would be broken, and a new chapter would emerge, one filled with hope, love, and the vibrant art of a woman whose spirit had been unjustly silenced. "Together," I whispered, holding the necklace up to the light, knowing that I was no longer alone in this journey. With Tomas by my side and Lucia's spirit guiding us, we would set her free.